What do you worry about? Now, I'm still looking for that one person who never worries. Anyone here? No. It's very normal to worry. It's very human. So what do you worry about? I worry about when our treasurer looks through the books, can we pay all the bills here at St. Paul's? That's one of my worries. Now, I also know of people who worry about their health, about their well-being. People worry about their children and grandchildren. In what world do they grow up? And you can add so many things to worries. We all tend to worry at least once in a while. There is another thing that's called anxiety. And some call it performance anxiety. Like right before I get up here, on Sunday morning before I come, I feel like this. Ooh, this energy coming up. And I know musicians often feel like it's rising, or people who are on stage in any other way. So anxiety and angina, like this constriction, are related. It's actually going to the same root. Imagine a boa constrictor wrapping around you, and you feel the tightness in the chest. You feel like trying to jump out of your skin or whatever. And anxiety, often they say it's contagious. Let's say I let a rat down here run under the pew. If you don't see it, but one or two persons jump up, what would the others do? It's kind of, something going up. So it's this resonance, it's this, just jumping up. Or you think of a mink or a mouse or a snake or whatever. So, but then, or you think of sometimes the microphones get this feedback, and it's going bigger, bigger, bigger. The feedback loop, it's blowing up. That's how I understand anxiety working in us. And then there's the third thing, in addition to worry, anxiety, that's fear or phobias. And they can be very specific, like scared of spiders, or scared of a crowd of people, or scared of standing up in front of a crowd and speaking, everyone looking at me, and I'm up to say something and I feel like I can't. So very specific fears. And the interesting thing is, or my question to you is, what is your very personal combination of worries, anxiety, and fear? They may be very personal, but we all have been there, we all know, we all experience them. Sometimes bigger, more overwhelming. Sometimes it feels like sinking, or anxiety may rise, go up when that dentist appointment gets closer and closer. Or you know yourself, you have been there. Our scriptures today give us some guidance. How do we deal with worries, with anxiety, with fear, with being very normal, being very human, being very real? And our passage from Philippians says, do not worry about anything, or don't be anxious about anything. But with thanksgiving, bring your requests before God. And the peace of God, which passes our understanding, will keep your hearts safe and rooted. So do not worry, and with thanksgiving. I want to lift up this thanksgiving. Tell you why. I remember dear sweet Betty. She was in her 80s. And she was struggling with one of her children, her daughter, and she was worrying about her grandchildren. And often she woke up in the middle of the night and realized, I don't know what else to do. And then there happened a shift. Instead of counting sheep or counting back from 100, Betty started counting blessings. I'm grateful for the bed and the covers. I'm grateful to have enough to eat. I'm grateful that I have heat in the home. I'm grateful for, and she started counting blessings, like that song you may know. Count your blessings, name them one by one, and so on. I tell you, there are people who keep gratitude journals. Every evening, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Or you get up in the morning and count 3 things for which you're grateful for. The challenge for me is to always find 3 different things that I've mentioned before. But if you go into them, there are so many things we can be grateful for. And you know what? The interesting thing is, it seems almost like we cannot be grateful and express gratitude and at the same time worry. You see, often happens, what do you focus on? Do you count blessings? And we know of Paul, who wrote the letters to the Philippians and also the letter to the Romans and several other of the letters. Paul was in prison with Silas, shackled, tied down in the darkest rat hole. What do they do there? They count blessings. They praise the living God in prison. In the darkest situations, when we worry, when we get anxious, when there is something we're afraid of, whether it's very specific or whether it's more diffuse, to look at what is, to express gratitude, makes all the difference in the world. Now, I know, it doesn't always help. When you're in a panic mode, woo. I've been once there. I never went back to it. My oldest brother, Christian, he played the organ. And he worked hard and he studied well and he was quite a good organ player. And I, as the youngest one, well, I adored my brother, so I tried too. And I signed up to play a service. And I was not prepared, never ever. I sat at the organ. I had cold sweat, my friends. It was nightmare. And everyone could tell me, well, count your blessings and so on. The only blessing, let me come through this alive. That was about it. But what I'm saying, there are different stages or grades from, well, I'm anxious, I worry too, I'm really scared, I am scared, I'm panicked, I need to get out of here. So there are different stages, but overall, good practice to focus on what I'm grateful for. Second thing is to have someone to share, someone who listens, someone who cares. And that's our second scripture, the gospel message. The disciples are in this boat, the waves are coming strong at it, the storm turns it around, they feel like drowning. What do? They go to Jesus, wake him up, and tell him how they feel. We're drowning. Don't you notice? Do something about it. So even before Jesus calms the storm already, they share what is weighing on them. They share their anxiety, their frustration. They're up in arms, but they're not on their own. And as Linda mentioned here, We are Jesus for each other. We listen to each other. We have open hearts, and we go and are receptive to what other people worry about. We listen to it. What are you afraid of? Like sometimes we go through that exercise. We went through that exercise with our kids growing up, like afraid of this. And then the mind goes rampant and goes into catastrophizing and goes down the rabbit hole. And then what do you do as parent? Well, you go with them to the rabbit hole. And then you say, and then they go the next step, and then they go the next step, and you walk with them to that place of, and then they'll discover it's gonna be okay. It'll work out in one way or another. That is what faith often is about. We may be in the scarcity, we may be in the dark, in the worrying, in the fretting, in the downward spiral. But there is some light to look at, some blessings to count, someone who listens, someone who cares, someone who is with me. And isn't it wonderful to have those people around us who really care and are with us through the nightmare? Now, we have a third scripture, and that is the Genesis story of the Tower of Babel or Babel, whatever you pronounce it. And it's a warning story. And it's the story, you all know people like that. People are too inflated, too full of themselves. It's like no room in this space. The world circles around them. It's almost like, whoa. And the story comes at it, you know, the higher you climb, the thinner the air gets. Be careful. Pride comes before the fall. It's the old story of hubris, where you feel like taking in too much space, thinking of yourself as God, as taking on those powers. It's the invitation to be true to ourselves. And often when we see people burning up or falling down or tripping up because they were way too inflated, it feels like the normal reaction comes in me. Well, they had it coming. Don't we know that feeling? Or the Schadenfreude or something. It's kind of, yeah, there is wisdom in humility, in being grounded, in being connected to the ground. So, what do you worry about? What gets you really anxious? What are you afraid of? What is your very personal combination of all of that? Counting blessings, living gratefully. Listen to someone who is in that space. Makes all the difference in the world, doesn't it? Will you do that?